Hey everybody, what's up? So I was driving home the other day and playing this CD, and the song called "All My Mateys Dead and Gone" by Captain Dan and the Scurvy Crew came on. It's like, this kind of reminds me of the fact that there are a lot of different channels that I miss, and when you really stop and think about YouTube, it seems like a lot of channels do come and go. Um, and it kind of sucks, because there's some awesome channels that I miss. Like Old School Brian, he had a great collection that he talked about at one point before his final video that he's going to have to sell off. He's having some health issues. Chuck Rock and Woodland 37. Chris and Carl, great guys. And I think they still are. Either together or separate, as the two fat bastards together. Um, they were hilarious together and definitely has some different takes on what you would normally see. Chris had this giant Chuck Rock tattoo put on his back. He was done by one of the 16-bit bros, who I miss as well. It was just awesome work. And Carl, I remember last video I saw where he had his game room. He has like this giant Bayonetta painted on his wall, and like all these different retro, characters. And it's like, yeah, that's really cool. And you miss seeing this stuff. You really do. It's kind of like, who else was it? Splatter Trigger. Seeing his retro stuff. He's a big Cave fan. Ocarina fella. Mistress Ishbo. She was kind of like part. She was part of the gaming community. She talked about how, I remember one episode that she's from Puerto Rico and she learned English from video games. That was really cool to hear, and she's still around in different forms. It was actually because of her, if I remember correctly, that I learned in part about 8-Bit Eric, because they were really close friends. And so that's kind of what got me in a way, and I know people are going to, whatever. It got me watching his channel because I thought it was really cool that he did this video for her when she had a relative that passed away. It's just not the gaming side. There's like Hero Statue Collector Lou. Lou was a great guy. He really was. If anybody needed help, he had these raffles, stuff like that, where he could win one of the figures that he had. He had awesome stuff. Through him, I learned about Ranger Black. Tessa's like, I think she still is. I haven't seen anything from her lately, where she had like a big Power Rangers fan. And who else? Trying to think of the name and I can't. There were like a couple of toy, channels. Unfortunately, they're gone. There was Chuck who had a couple of channels. I think one was like Ramen, Asian Ramen or something like that. I don't remember. I can't think of the name of his channels, and I wish I'd messaged him and asked him, because his channels are no longer active, and he had some stuff going on in his personal life. So I understand, that. Stuff happens and people leave, and he had a lot of great gaming content and different stuff. Who else would there have been? 1316 Killer, Missy Man, Killer Comedy Unleashed. Joe is a funny guy, and he had a lot of serious stuff, and some of his stuff kind of helped a lot of people, through their day. Me being one of them. And, he left, unfortunately, as well. Did just a lot of different stuff, and there's a couple people taking credit for that, which is BS, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. You kind of miss it. You really do. Trying to think if there's anybody else. Patamus. You cannot. You really cannot go into any of this without mentioning Patamus. Patamus has been gone for a couple years now. She's a great lady. Crazy. I'm sorry. She's crazy funny. She did a lot of question videos. A lot of people who have seen her stuff know Patamus. They know who she is if you remember her. She would do like these different questions, stuff like that. And one of the funny things for me is I'm going to say why. I actually don't have the voodoo dildo joke anymore, because I kind of got worried that somebody might say something or report it or whatever, which I don't personally like. But that's the reason why I took it down. And I said, hey, you know, do you have anything that, like, how dirty, like, is there a limit? She goes, no. And I'm like, well, okay, here you go. And she goes, yeah, I can understand why you asked about that. I'm just laughing because it's true. It was kind of one of those things where you don't feel comfortable posting a joke like that. If you don't know what it is, just go look up voodoo dildo. It is long joke, funny, one of my favorites. I had an aunt who I would actually kind of like, we trade dirty jokes, and that was one of them. And my mother's just sitting there looking at us, and she hears me tell this joke, and I swear her eyeballs almost popped out of her head. It was one of the funniest things ever to see. Dad and Luke, they were gonna take it tour. They did some gaming stuff. Talked about like walking around the parts of the coast of Ireland. I think that would have been cool to see. They haven't been active for a couple of years. Who else? There's just like so many people, and some people change names. They've been gone for a while, unfortunately. That you really don't like. Chilled Kiwi is one of them. Another one from the gaming side. There are some channels that I still watch, that every now and then they'll upload, but it's not that often. Face Forward, he's someone from the model community. Secondhand Hunter. Dave did a lot of different stuff, like video games, collecting random stuff that he found. A lot of VHS tapes that he would pick up, and he would just basically like show it. Or Shaker Productions, he did some really interesting videos. Trying to remember what they called it. It was like a form of community in like YouTube, and I can't think of it. It's going to drive me nuts. Trying to think if there's anybody else. Spider Trigger, Spudley. Spudley talked about video game stuff in his life. He's kind of one of those ones that I miss, because he would talk about personal stuff and that. And I found it interesting because I kind of like hearing people talk about themselves, because everybody lives a different life. And so there's always something new that you might not ever know about someone, or a side of somebody's life that you just don't learn about. He's still around in another form, the Psycho Stalker. I love. His stuff isn't family friendly, but it's fun to watch. Definitely one of those ones. Trying to think. Venetian Princess, miss her. She's kind of like songs and that, different parodies. And there is one final person I want to mention. How to pull it up. He spells his channel name XRAXK. Miss that dude, really do. Mike, you'll know who I'm talking about. Vampire Mike will know who I'm talking about. He hasn't been around for a while. Talked about gaming. He had like a shoe collection. There's a lot of different stuff I miss, and a lot of different people. I know it sounds like I'm rambling, but it's the truth. There's all these channels that have such great content in that. There's a guy by the name, I think it was Rob, who had a video game store, and he hasn't been on. Probably because where he lives, they probably had to shut the store down on that. He used to sell at a flea market. I miss all these people. I really, truly do. And there are a couple I wish I could think of their names. Even like the Denmark Bros, they would do different stuff. They would do taste. One of them was making his own like alcohol. And last one is another channel that kind of inspired me. Would have been Benji James. Benji actually got me to watch The Signal, and one of my most recent video pickups was The Pool. He covered that a couple years ago, and I finally found a copy of it for a reasonable price. Benji kind of like is one of those people that had no fear of like just showing clips from the movies or whatever, and it ended up being his review of The Pool that ended up being the deciding factor for me not to kind of like show clips, because also my computer won't handle it. But because of the fact that he got a copyright hit from a studio that had nothing to do with the movie whatsoever. And that sucked. It's like a German film, a film from Germany. And I'm going to be talking about it as soon as I get the movie watched. And yeah, definitely, I will be posting a link to his video so you can see it. That's it, everybody. I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye.